imagination and fantasy.
Yeah.
There's so much imagination, there's so much fantasy and flair. Imagination and flair, lack a bit of imagination, fantasy, imagination and fantasy.
Yeah.
There's so much imagination, there's so much fantasy and flair. Imagination and flair, lack a bit of imagination and fantasy.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to episode 28 of the Sokkah podcast now. I'm very excited, Joe, because we've got A-League Legend Brendon Santalab on the call. Thank you for joining us, Brendon.
You're welcome, boys.
Welcome, Brendon. I don't
No
know
worries.
how we've got him on, really.
Some would say there's a personal link somewhere along the line, but awesome. So, Joe, first off, actually, no, Brendon, we'll ask you, how are you going at the moment with the whole lockdown situation and with everything that's going on?
Yeah, look, I think for everyone it's been very challenging. I think mentally, I think we've seen the A-League players have just within a week or two really struggle mentally, and I'm no different. It's up and down all the time. Some days you wake up and very positive, and then other days you wake up and it is tough. When you're bored, you don't know what to do, and there's only so much cooking and Netflix you can do. So it hasn't been easy, and I think I worry about the players at the moment with what they're going through. Even the clubs, all the staff, it's really difficult. So just trying to get out of the house, obviously once a day, and we've got pretty strict rules here in Melbourne, so we can't really drive down to the beach and go for a nice jog down there. That's a risk. You can get a fine. So just going around the neighbourhood out for a jog once a day, and that's about it. To be honest.
Just with you, sorry, Santa. Just with your jogs, what's your average kilometre time?
Super slow these days. They're not very quick, but try to get in, between 5 and 10 Ks a day. So, whether that's walking or jogging, one or the other.
You need
Awesome.
Papa on your back again.
I don't miss that, but
You miss him though.
Yeah, look, got a soft spot for Papa, obviously. What he did for me and Michael, so yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Brendon, talk to us quickly about where you're working now and sort of your footballing at the moment, or just before we all had to stay inside.
Yeah, so after the Glory, I pretty much played a week or two after the grand final here in Melbourne for Dandenong City. And the reason why I joined Dandenong City was pretty much to just help them survive relegation battle over here. I had a lot of offers in the NPL here and in Sydney as well. But Ante Moric, who is assistant coach at Western United at the moment, gave me a phone call, and he convinced me to head over to Dandenong. So got the job done there, which was great. And now I'm at George Cross Football Club in Caroline Springs, and I was pretty lucky. I landed a commercial manager role at the club, and it's an incredible football club. I think they're obviously rich in history. They were part of the old NSL, and now they've 6-7 months old now. They've built a state-of-the-art facility worth about $17-18 million, and the club's in the State 1 competition, which is probably third or fourth division, whatever it is. But to have a facility like that, I think it just shows the ambition of the club and where they want to go. And also, I'm a player at the club too, so still trotting around a little bit.
So, as a commercial sales manager, are you like calling people up like memberships, or like what does that job like entail like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's more about pitch hire. We had a lot of inquiries coming in to hire our pitchers. Wesley United train at our training base. So we're very busy there in terms of the commercial side and sponsorships as well. There's a lot going on, but I was lucky because I can pretty much instill my professionalism and the things that I've learned during my career at the club in many aspects. It's not just, the sales and, trying to get people to hire the pitches and gain sponsors. I think it's great that I can be able to help the youth at the club as well and mentor the juniors coming through, and also be a role model for all the juniors coming through the club who are aspiring to, hopefully one day play in the A-League.
That's really cool. That's awesome, Brendon. So, Joe, we'll quickly talk about our sponsors. Joe, you're wearing a nice Juventus top at the moment.
Yeah, I bought this one a while ago. It's like 03 top with like Conte, like
sleeve?
number 8.
Oof, very nice.
Yeah, it is long sleeve as well. Like it's a bit hot, but it looks nice.
Now, my top isn't retro, but I really thought I have to wear the Western Sydney Wanderers top for this podcast. But we say that because our official sponsor, Vintage Sock Shirts Australia, you can visit their website, enter the discount code SOKKAH Sokkah for 10% off.
That's right, and we're also sponsored by Streamgate as well. You know a lot more about them than I do, Trent. So you can give your spiel about them.
I do know more, Joe. I do know more. Streamgate Live Streaming Australia, our official sponsor as well. They're a premium live streaming service in Australia. So if you need a live stream an event with a pay-per-view or subscription in different languages, they've got you covered. They'll put you all over different social media. And the studio is 5 minutes from Sydney. So big ups to Dennis and Streamgate Australia. Our official sponsors are out of the way, Joe.
Look, can I just say, like, Dennis, who's like our sponsor for Streamgate, he's like a mad Sydney FC fan.
Yeah.
And like, you just always seem to piss him off.
By wearing
like,
this
you always wear like your Western Sydney tops, and now we have like a Western Sydney legend as well.
I've got a feeling
if I'm Dennis, I'll like definitely pull out the money.
Yeah, let's hope the sponsorship's still on after tonight, yeah?
Well, I think some people think I'm a secret West Sydney fan, which might be true in all honesty. Oh, God.
Well, you're
all right.
still supporting them even after the last couple of years.
Oh, shit. All right. So, Brendon, we'll jump over to you. You first started your career at Parramatta, and I want to know how that all sort of started. So, tell us how you sort of got the call up, the contract, the trials, and then, in the NSL.
Yeah, the old Parramatta Power is pretty crazy actually, because at the time the club was brand new, and I was chasing a spot in the youth team. And when the trials were being hosted, I was actually injured at the time. And you probably remember a name, Joel Griffiths.
Yeah.
His father was actually the assistant coach of the Parramatta Power youth team. So because my brother, was playing with Joel Griffiths at Sydney United at the time, I was luckily given a spot into the side without actually trialling.
Shit.
So the football gods were looking after me with Alan Griffiths being the assistant coach there. And it was amazing. We went on to win the minor premiership that year, and I finished highest goal scorer in the team. So luckily they picked well.
You seem to have a thing for minor premierships, I'll say, Brendon.
Yeah. The one at Perth, look, I waited a long time for a senior minor premiership, but it was well worth it. I think the memories that we have from last season, it was Popper came to the club, pretty much revolutionised the club. And the players that came in all gelled very quickly. It was a special year, and to do it in my last, I'll never forget it. And we can go on and we can talk about the grand final and what happened, and the penalty miss and all that. But it's football. I've seen it happen to many, and unfortunately, I was one of the ones who wasn't so lucky in the GF. So yeah.
Yeah, quite a similar thing happened to me in my final game for school as well. So
Joe's told it on the podcast before, but yeah. Joe does know what it feels like.
Yeah.
So, Brendon, when you were at Sydney United as well, because that was sort of the prime NSL days, and you've had experience in the NSL and the A-League. But what was it like with Sydney United? And because I feel like the NSL was just a different beast to the A-League completely.
Yeah, it was. It was. There was pure passion involved in the game. It wasn't as much exposure to the media, and there wasn't much money involved in the game either. Back then, I think I can say it now. I was on about $400 to $500 a week, and that was travelling up from Wollongong to Sydney. So half of that was going in petrol pretty much, and but a great experience. I think I was playing there at 19 years old and starting regularly. So I think that club for me really helped me build a platform and mature very quickly. As well as Parramatta Power, because Sydney United was after Parramatta Power, and the Croatian. Obviously, my parents are both Croatian, and it just all fit very well. We had a great 2 years there, and I was lucky to play with my brother at Sydney United as well. So, it was good times, good stepping stone to go on to bigger and better things. And I think Sydney United's produced many top quality players, many Socceroos over the years. So there's a little breeding ground there that seems to keep producing.
Yeah,
Just on your time, like traveling from, say, Parramatta down to Sydney, what kind of card were you using then?
Toyota Corolla, and it was the worst colour ever. It was cream, but the wheels were turning and it was getting us there. So it was good old days. Yeah.
Was it the same colour as your dyed hair when you were at Sydney FC?
The hair
Oh shit. And so your time in Malaysia really interests me, because all I've seen is your goal to game ratio, and it's 23 goals in 22 games, if that is correct. How was your time then? What was that like?
Yeah, and again, it happened really quickly. There's so many times where I just had to pack my bags and take off during my career. And I think that's the joy of football. You just never know what's going to happen. And pretty much one day I had a call from Singapore saying they needed a striker. And there was actually 3 other Aussies there at the time. There was Peter Bennett, Marcus Phillips, and Alex Jurich.
All right.
So I was going, and we had an Australian coach, Scott O'Donnell. So it was crazy how I ended up at a club with 4 other Aussies, but it just really helped me settle in there. And again, it was another little step. The league wasn't overly strong at all. So for a youngster to go and live in another country, to learn a different culture and different way of life and style of living, was again another great step for me in the progress in my career. And going over there and scoring all those goals it gave me great confidence for further in my career. The people at the club were incredible from day one. They really helped me settle in as well. I remember a fan rocked up to my first training session and gave me a bike. I'll never forget. It was crazy, but the bike was the same colour as my first car. It was that horrible cream colour. I think that moment for me it said a lot about the club and the fans and the type of people that I was going to be working with there. So it was a special 6 months.
That's really cool.
Was that how Papa got you to come to Perth, by just offering you a bike, or?
A motorbike.
That was an easy decision.
Did you
as long as the colour wasn't cream.
Yeah. With being in Malaysia, are you a big fan of Asian food? Did you enjoy the cuisine?
Yeah, it was testing times pretty much with the food, and never living in a foreign country before. So yeah, tried a bit of everything, and it opens your eyes up, when you go to another country so young and eat different foods and yeah, just completely different way of life. And for young kids, if mentally and physically, emotionally they can do it, and they're prepared and they're ready for it, I think any youngster should give it a crack. And if it works out, it works out, and if not, you can always come back home and go again. But for me personally, I really thrived off that experience going overseas, and it's not for everyone. I think you really need to be ready physically and mentally to go. But I think if you've had the right coaches and a tough upbringing, and started very young, the hard way, I think at 18, 19, you're ready to go.
Just with Malaysia as well, like me and Trent have both played like friendly games there, and the humidity absolutely like destroyed us. How did you cope with that, and like different like climate conditions and like different pitches in Malaysia?
Yeah, it was horrific actually, the heat. And I've got a really good story actually. I went training by myself one afternoon, and I don't know if you remember the old silver Ronaldo boots. Back in the day, that really shiny silver.
Yeah.
I think I've got you.
Yeah, I was doing some shooting, and it was that hot. I kicked the ball, and the front of my sole just flapped at the front of my boot, and I just peeled my sole off the boot. And it was that hot that day. Crazy me training in it, but yeah, that's how hot it was. So
What?
it's probably
Jeez.
a really good example. So yeah, there was some. I'd ride my bike to training some days, and I'd get there, and I'm just dripping. So yeah, sweat. So
Yeah,
good
it's
experience.
so hot in Malaysia. And then, so you did travel to Belgium and you played sort of the top flight there. That would have been a really tough league. Was that sort of in so far in your career, the peak of your sort of the boys there was a serious league, serious division?
Yeah, as soon as I got there, I seen that I was at a whole new level. Probably 5 to 10 steps above Australia, because back then we weren't. Look, we were full time, but we weren't. We were semi-professional pretty much. And when I seen the amounts that they're training over there, the workloads that they're doing, the quality of the football and the players, and how hard they work, I quickly realised that I was in for a bit of a shock, and I had to adapt very quickly. I felt that I really struggled in Belgium to go from the old NSL to Belgium and to that tempo, to that intensity of training, and just the workloads in general. You're going from 3-4 times a week to 6-7 times a week. And plus a lot more running. The Belgians love running. I remember, and I'll never forget it because it was so painful. We used to, and our recovery training was a 9-10 kilometre run through the bush. And here's this little Aussie down the back, struggling to keep up with the team. And I thought these guys are machines. So, and they weren't going slow either. They were actually going for it. And some of these boys are playing 90 minutes, less than 24 hours ago. So, yeah, it was a big shock to me, and probably not the greatest experience. I had, my body went through a lot of adapting and injuries, and had a couple operations over there on my knee, and then there was all this match fixing going on over there whilst I was there as well, which was pretty crazy. We had, got taken to the police station. I was interviewed one night as well. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I had a car accident over there. So it was a crazy 3 years. Yeah, I wouldn't go back today, I tell you.
Would you go back on a holiday? or just like flat out no more Belgium?
Bit miserable there and cold and yeah, summer goes for about 3 weeks, I think. So nah,
Not even for the chocolate?
that one is. Oh, the chocolate.
Yeah, like you wouldn't even go back for the chocolate?
I can import that for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fair
shit.
enough.
Did you find it tough because obviously in Malaysia you said there was Australians, but was there anyone that you had any contact with that you knew before in Belgium, or were you kind of just there on your own?
Nah, just on my own. Yeah, so just everywhere I went, pretty much, I just went to give it a crack. I didn't ask too much about the dollars or you know, the details of the contract. I just wanted an opportunity. I think it's very different now with the mindset of the players. You know, you obviously look at the dollar first, and there's, you know, a different mindset around the whole game at the moment and these days. So yeah, when I was obviously going over to Asia and then over to Belgium, I didn't think twice. I just thought of it as an opportunity. And if it did work out, that's great. And if not, it could lead to something in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to ask, because we've speaking to some players, and I know of a few stories of, you know, young players going overseas, like more nowadays, and just struggling so hard mentally with being on their own. And like I've heard some people calling it quits. They've got the opportunity, you know, they're playing well, but they can't do it. Do you think you were mentally like really tough and above the rest, or you just think, or how'd you get through all that being on your own a lot overseas? Because I know we've heard of some boys that just really can't do it.
Yeah, and I think for any Australian footballer who's had their experience overseas would say this, that at some point during their time that they wanted to throw the towel in. And I think the players who are mentally strong, they survive. It's brutal in Europe. You know, as foreigners, when foreigners come to Australia, we expect them to be better than the Australian players. When us Aussie players go overseas, then we're expected to be better than what they have over there. So there's very high expectation, pressure. You're all on your own, and it's challenging. You know, different language, different food, and you know, every day you have to go to training, but you have to face all these other obstacles off the pitch as well.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not for everybody, and it doesn't matter. It's very hard to prepare for going overseas, but I think the tougher you've done it here in Australia, then, you know, the more you'll be prepared over there.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I have a theory about why like some players can make it in Europe and some players like just can't. Now, hear me out. So, Brendon, are your parents born like in Croatia?
Yes, they were both born in Croatia.
Okay, now this is a theory. I think Australian players who are first generation Australians whose parents come from overseas, I think just somehow mentally, it must be like a European thing with like, because my parents are telling me they're like crazy. I think they're just more mentally stronger to go overseas by themselves. Like, would you buy into that theory or?
I definitely believe that, and I think that comes down to the parenting. You know, my parents went through a very difficult childhood. You know, they didn't have much, so, you know, they were very grateful for whatever they had, and they, you know, struggled to find jobs and earn money just to put food on the table. So I think when, you know, you parent your children and you've been through that, I think you naturally bring your children up a different way to someone who's had everything from day one. So, you know, my dad was very tough on me, and Dad told me that his father was very tough on him, and I think now I can thank him. You know, it wasn't pleasant at the time. There were a few wooden spoons out, a few branches in my legs, but you know, it really did help me long term build a resilience and an appreciation for the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Great question, Joe. I like that.
Yeah.
Spot on. So you went to Hungary, we'll probably skip over that because we might be here for a while. When you're at Sydney FC, the white tips came out, and I feel like there was a new Brendon Santalab in town when you were at Sydney FC.
Yeah. That was it back then, wasn't it, boys? That was it. I was, little beach boy back then, but yeah, they were good days. And
Because you played with Tony
so
Popovich at one point, was that correct?
yeah, Popper was there. We had an incredible team. We had Steve Corica and Alex Brock. I think Ian Fife was there. I don't know if you remember Fife.
Yeah.
Back at the time, Janino was in the squad as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had some phenomenal players back then, and yeah, just a little phase that I went through with the blonde tips. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen. I put something up on Instagram yesterday, and I said I put a bit of a poll up and asked people if I should get the blonde tips back, and the poll was unfortunately a yes.
Unfortunately, I reckon. Fortunately,
So now I've got my partner, cursing at me, saying, "No, you can't do it, this and that." So I'm pretty scared. I don't know what I'm going to do.
And so when you were at Sydney, sorry, you go ahead, Joe.
So when you signed for Sydney, that was back, well, like one of the first seasons when the A-League started. What, like, from like a player's perspective, what were like the major changes that like you experienced from like going from the NSL to the A-League?
Yeah, I think a lot of media exposure. I think that was something that I really noticed. There were a lot of obvious cameras come to training a couple of days before to do the interviews with the players. I don't know whether the standard or the level was the same as the old NSL. I think the old NSL had some incredible players, and there were some phenomenal games that were played back then. And so it was, the level was probably very similar in the beginning of the A-League. And slowly, I think the level started to increase in the A-League. And then the last few years, we've probably seen the league, probably a little bit stale, to be honest, across the board, and probably not at the level that it should be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because you're not in it anymore.
That, but I really don't think so.
Fair enough. All right, so we'll quickly talk about when you went to China, because you spent quite a while there, in Chengdu and Chongqing. I'm going to say, if I can pronounce them correctly.
Chengdu and Chongqing.
Chongqing, okay.
Yeah, it was another crazy little story. I was actually up at North Queensland at the time with the Fury, the brand new club set up, and I was there for 3 months and was with Ian Ferguson there, and wasn't happy. And, didn't have the best 3 months of training before the season was going to start. Just didn't settle well. And this opportunity came out of the blue to go to China, and bang, I was off. I got a release from the Fury, and I just took the opportunity. And after a 2-day trial in China, I signed for 18 months. So that ended up being 4 years in China, and I could sit here all day and talk about China and the eye opener that was for me, and what I experienced over there. Crazy match fixing.
Again,
it was incredible. But I tried to focus on my job, and everywhere I went, I just tried to focus on myself and doing the best I possibly can for the badge on whatever jersey I had on. that's something that I really stuck by in my career. Just play for the badge on the jersey. It doesn't matter where you are. Respect the club, respect the people, because players come and go, and I just tried to make a good impression from day dot to the day I left at every single club that I went to. And I think that's something that players now, especially the young players, really need to think about. Every time you put that jersey on, go out there and play with passion and represent that jersey, and give it everything.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so when you're in China, when you were there, because I know obviously the league's really taken off now with a lot of heavy investment. It probably wasn't like that to that extent when you were there, but was the league sort of slowly taking off to where it kind of is now, where you've got players like Hulk and Oscar, really, really good players playing in that league?
Yeah, so pretty much they came just after I signed with Western Sydney Wanderers and came back to Australia. I remember because we got relegated due to match fixing at Chengdu. Crazy but true. Guangzhou Evergrande were another side at the time who got relegated that year with us.
Shit.
So they were relegated into the second division, and they signed a player in the second division, paid $2 million transfer for a player called Marici from Brazil. Incredible player, and he tore the league to shreds. And we got promotion back with Guangzhou Evergrande straight away the next year. And then as soon as Guangzhou got promoted up, then Dario Conca signed with Guangzhou Evergrande. Another Brazilian, just phenomenal player, like a little Messi. And they signed him on crazy money. And I think that was the big start to crazy signings that started going on. And crazy me, I came back to Australia. And for all the right reasons, I came back. I did 4 years over there and had a great time. Achieved, probably what I wanted to over there, and then signed with the Wanderers, and rest is history.
Yeah.
So, like, when you did sign for the Wanderers, that was their inaugural season. What's it like, say, signing for a club which has no history and you don't know what you're essentially walking into?
Yeah, so it was year 2 that I signed with the Wanderers, it was. Sorry, I missed a bit of the question there.
So what's it like signing for a club which doesn't necessarily have a lot of history and you don't essentially know what you're walking into?
Yeah, I actually knew what I was walking into with the Wanderers. I went to watch a game in their inaugural season when I was in my off season for China. And a Chinese friend actually came over to visit me whilst I was here on holiday in Australia. We went to watch a game at the Wanderers, and it was at Perth Stadium when it was packed, obviously, and the RBB were unbelievable. It was just an incredible first year for the club. And I turned to my friend and I said, I want to play for this club. And just I bought the tickets, didn't ask anyone for tickets or whatever, and just wanted to experience the atmosphere. And within 12 months, I signed for the Wanderers. So it was a pretty easy sell when I went to watch that game. And when Papa called me and asked me to join the club, actually said no twice.
Is that right?
And because I was actually doing really well in China. And then the third time I thought, you know what, if I say no to Papa, I'm never going to be able to work under him. So I took the opportunity to sign.
That's really interesting.
So with Papa as well, you played with him at Sydney FC, and now you're being coached by him at the Wanderers. What's it like, just going from, say, he's your friend playing, and now he's your friend who's also your coach? How does that change any aspect of your relationship with him?
I think Papa was always very much business. business orientated. So, and when I mean business, I talk about a winning mentality, and a person who strives to be the best every single day. That's what I mean in terms of Popper and
Yeah.
you know, being serious and business minded. You know, for me, firstly, playing under Popper was an amazing experience, knowing where he came from. You know, from Palace, and I think he was in Qatar after that, and obviously he played in Japan. So yeah, it was you know, I was only 24 back then, so you know, when Popper arrived at the club, I was like, wow, you know, this is special. And then Popper got the assistant coaches role the year after, I think it was, at Sydney FC. So then he started coaching me, and I'll never forget a session he took me on the sand at Bondi Beach with three other players, and absolutely smashed us. And I thought, oh my God, this is, Popper's going to be brutal in his coaching career.
Not wrong.
And then like now when I look back, it was you know, all the hard training and you know, probably the toughest sessions that I've ever been through during my career are well worth it.
For sure. And so at Western Sydney, I want to talk a little bit about the Asian Champions League campaign year, the winning year, because I know that there's actually a good documentary about it on KO that I need to watch. But like from outside looking in, I looked at that Western Sydney team. Like you look at them on paper, and it's like there's not these stars jumping out at you, but there was one thing, like the mentality Popper had everyone going at I'd watch a West in the Champions League. I couldn't even describe it. And tell us about being a part of that, because there was no superstars in that team, but you boys like achieved nothing that no Australian club's ever done.
Yeah, I think Popper blended a team with experience, you know, some players who played overseas at the highest level, and then blended with some really good players within the A-League, you know, Bridgie and Topper Stanley in particular, and the chemistry was spot on. You know, we all ran for each other, and you know, like you said, we weren't superstars, but we all worked very hard as a team, and that comes down to the coaching and the way we set up as a team. You know, the team spirit of training. You know, there's so many things that make up a good football team, and I think Popper just got everything right. Well, he got everything right in year one and just missed the grand final, and then year two just took it to a whole new level. And I think that was just the entree year one, and he probably learnt a lot from year one, and you know, and everyone probably said, you know, he overachieved in year one. Well, when I arrived in year two, I was like, no, they didn't overachieve, because I seen the way he operated and the training that the players did, and it was just really tough training. But the chemistry of the group was phenomenal. You know, and again, when I joined Perth, the chemistry between the players last season was phenomenal. I think that's something Popper's really, really good at. Is bringing a group together, making each other work hard and want to run for each other, fight for each other, but you know, implement a mentality. Obviously, that's a winning one, but a mentality that has no egos, and that, you know, if you're in the squad one week and you're out the next, you know, that's okay. It's football, and you need to understand that the boss is the boss, and he makes those decisions to benefit the team and to win every single week. So, you know, there were games where, you know, times at Western Sydney where I'd have an absolute blinder and I'd be on the bench next week. But his mindset would be, for me to come on in that game the week after and finish the game off. So there's always a reason as to why someone wasn't playing. It was never personal. It was always to benefit the team.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in terms of Popovic, because I know he's probably praised a lot for being a good man manager, and as you talked about, that chemistry. But do you think, because I think tactically, he's definitely evolved when you're at the Glory and at Wanderers, but do you think like tactically he's really clued in, probably one of the best coaches you've had in that sense as well?
Oh, definitely. I think the backroom staff as well have to take a lot of credit because the hours they work and the time that they put into analysing, and obviously, it takes a whole team to get things right. And, the way we set up and how simple our structure is and the way that we want to play, the way that we want to defend. I think it makes it very clear for the players, and when you go out, it's enjoyment. You go out there and enjoy the football, and you know your roles. And at the end of the day, getting the 3 points under Popper is normal. Not getting the 3 points is, it's like a loss, because there's such high expectation when you work under Popper that, even a draw, you come in and you look around the change room and it's like a loss. So, and, the bar's set so high when you work with Tony, and it's a special environment to be in.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. And in terms of that campaign, because I know obviously Tom Juric was in the squad as well, and you rarely played together. Was it because I'm thinking he really had you on your toes a lot, and did you not know if you were starting some games because it was always a battle between you and Tommy?
Yeah, it was a good little tussle with Tommy, actually. We pushed each other very hard. He'd have the shits when I was starting, and which is great. That's what gets the best out of players, and Popper just made sure that we never knew who was going to play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You'd turn up on game day and you wouldn't know, but you had to prepare like you were starting. And then, I think the chemistry between Tommy and I was brilliant. We had a great relationship, and obviously I was very happy for him when he was scoring and when he was doing well. And then it was my job to come on and finish either the game off when I was on the bench, or make it as hard as possible when I was starting for the defence and the opposition. And then when Tommy would come on, he'd be able to finish the game off. So I think that understanding and that relationship really helped.
Yeah, no, for sure. Joe, do you want to add anything?
Oh, I just went blank. I had a question, but I just went blank.
Brendon, in terms of the whole campaign, what were obviously with the final would have been a massive highlight, but was there any other highlights in terms of that Champions League campaign for you?
Remember my question as well. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, one sticks out for me, and it was 2 games. It was we just lost the grand final in Brisbane. We were winning 1-0 with 5 minutes to go, and obviously Bess Upbridge had come to kill us. And then they ended up winning in extra time. But we had to travel straight after that loss to Japan to play Sint-Truiden, Hiroshima, and we were in no state to play pretty much mentally. I think physically we were very sore, and when you lose a grand final, probably sometimes takes you years to recover to get over it. We had to try and get together and play against this class outfit. No Japanese side's easy to play, and we went over there and we lost 3-1. Tommy Juric got this penalty. I don't know how he got this penalty, but the referee pointed to the spot. I think it was it wasn't. It was quite late in the game actually, and that
you guys
game.
got quite a, sorry, I was going to say you guys got quite a bit of luck with referees in that Champions League campaign.
Yeah, it wasn't luck, man. It was just all hard work. No. We need luck along the way. We definitely got the luck, but you know, overall it was the hard work of the boys that really got us the results that we needed. But anyway, back to the penalty decision. That penalty pretty much saved us. We were 3-0 down, or 2-0 down. We got that penalty 2-1, then Sint-Truiden scored another goal. So we had to come back to Australia and win 2-0. And I think that was the round of 16, that game. So, yeah, in front of a packed stadium, the atmosphere incredible. I'll never forget it. And Shannon Cole scored the first. You know, I think Shannon actually came on as a sub that game. I'm not too sure, but and then I scored with 5 minutes to go.
That's right.
So to overcome that hurdle of losing a grand final, having to fly, the fatigue, the mental strain of losing that grand final, then losing 3-1 over in Japan, and then having to come back and win 2-0 to go through, you know, it's incredible. The mindset of the players, the character, the attitude, it was just a brilliant squad to overcome such a big obstacle like that.
100%.
So with your time at the Wanderers, obviously that was a massive goal for you. How does that compare to your winner against Sydney in the Derby?
Yeah, it's a tough one because they're both different competitions, Joseph. So you know, the ACL was I'd never been a part of the ACL before. So you know, the Derby goal was you know, I still, you know, reflect on that sometimes because as a club, the Wanderers at that time, we were under immense pressure to beat Sydney. And Sydney were just destroying us at that time. And, you know, you could feel it before the game, the mountain on our shoulders as players to go out there and win that derby, to just break Sydney FC's unbeaten run for the season. Because they, you know, going on about the Invincibles all year and all of this. So I think that gave us more motivation. But look, both of those goals, I really can't separate them. They'll both be special for a long time.
Sure.
And we've actually got a good story in relation to that goal against Sydney. So there was a photo taken like with you celebrating with all the with I think the RBB, and then one of the fans has approached you about how you got that photo. And then it turns out you ended up framing this photo with like you and all these fans, and you ended up gifting this like massive framed photo to a Wanderers fan.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Who was the fan, do you know?
Is Luke? He's a listener of the show.
Luke.
Oh, Fennec, I think his last name is.
Yeah, look, it's very possible.
I've got a photo here if you want to see it.
Get it
There's
up,
a photo
Joe.
of like you with like a massive frame in the car park.
Be good to see. Good to see.
Because I sent it to Trent.
There's
Yeah.
a lot's happened over the years, so I've got to try and put my...
You can see that.
Is it
Oh, yes. Yep. No, I definitely remember that. That was actually at a Southern Districts. I think it was a barbecue or something for the club, and a couple of us Wanderers went down there for the day, and yeah, he's a big fan, so I gave him a signed, framed photo of the team, so it was good.
So cool.
I think like that just shows like what kind of person you are like off the field, because compared to say like your personality like on the field, especially when you're playing, you don't come off as like a nice guy or someone that would like be so generous, because on the field, especially at your time at Perth, you always getting like late tackles, yellow cards, every game guaranteed. And like you came off as like that kind of like Matt Simon or like best like Berisha character. But it's good that you can like separate that like on the field character with your off the field character. Would you agree?
Definitely, and I think a lot of people don't know the real person on and off the pitch. I think you know, any footballer who wants to win is not going to be liked on the pitch, you know, by the opposition fans, opposition players, and you know, I didn't want to be liked. I wanted to go out there and win for my team and win for my club, and along the way, whatever that was, whether it was a tackle or a you know, whatever it was, I just went out there to win. You know, I copped a lot of yellow cards late in the game, and it's true. And you know, that 15, 20 seconds, or that commotion, or that little you know, fight that everyone got into, could have won us the game. And although, you know, some would say that's not a nice way to play, but at the end of the day, it's 3 points and we win the game. You have to be very clever when you're on the pitch as well, and everyone just looks at how you win the game and where you are on the table. So whatever I could do to help the team, I was there to help my teammates.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you go to off the park, and you know, you're a role model for the kids. You're an ambassador for your club and for the sponsors and everybody involved in the game. And I just felt that it was really important that, you know, I did the right thing off the pitch and show a lot of respect to the fans and the people who paid their hard-earned money to come and watch, you know, us play. And whatever it was with Luke, I gave him that frame. And you know, I was very lucky as well to be ambassador at Ronald McDonald House at Westmead, and you know, do some work there with the kids and the families who are struggling there. So for me, it was about giving back as well, and I was very blessed to be in a position to give back. I think, you know, some advice for young players coming through: it doesn't really matter what age you are. As a professional athlete, you're placed in a beautiful position to be able to give back, whether it's to kids or people who are struggling. So I tried my best and gave what I could.
Very well said,
No,
Brendon.
it's actually so refreshing to hear that, because I think especially with a lot of today's like younger players, like people like age similar to me and Trent, you don't hear many stories like that. And like, I think it's definitely something, especially my generation, they can definitely like improve on.
Yeah, I think a lot of players these days take their position for granted, and they don't really know how good they've got it as a professional footballer. You know, unfortunately, during COVID-19 and where we come out as a football nation after this is you know, very unclear at the moment. But I think for the future of the game and it's a great opportunity for young players to listen to these type of interviews, and a lot of ex-professionals have been doing a lot of interviews, and it's a great time for the young players to learn.
No, for sure, Brendon, for sure. That's why we thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, Brendon, I've got one more question for you about the Champions League, and probably move on to some Twitter questions. One thing I've had, my thoughts are Australians or the A-League teams don't know much about the Asian teams in the Champions League, and like have had a track record of going there and being really unsuccessful. And obviously you boys did really well. Did Popovic and sort of that team at the time, did you really focus on studying those opposition teams? Because I feel like Australians just don't know much about Asian football. You boys obviously overcame it, but some teams just go over there and just struggle so hard in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think we thoroughly analysed every opposition that we played against as best as we could, and what we knew about the opposition. Sometimes we were going into games not knowing much about the opposition, you know, in terms of video and analysis and all of that. But I think we really focused on our work rate as a team. We knew that every single game we played in the ACL, we had to defend as a unit and try to stop them from scoring, because the quality of the Asian teams was incredible, and the budgets that they had, they could buy in all the quality that they were after. So we knew that we're up against better teams, and it was as simple as that. So it came down to our structure, the way we set up, and our work rate. I mean, there were teams that were better than us on a number of occasions during the tournament, but we ran more. Our structure was better than theirs, and at the end of the day, they got us through. You know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Joe, did you want to move on to some Twitter questions?
Yeah, I've got them right up here. So the majority about a topic that who cares about. But we did get a few good ones from some Wanderers fans. So the first one is from Magic Milos. He says, your favorite Wanderers ex-teammate?
Favorite Wanderers ex-teammate? There's so many good guys during my time there, but one that sticks out is Shinji Ono. A pure gentleman off the field, and even on the field, he was so polite to his own teammates, the opposition. But just to be able to play with a player of that caliber and that professionalism, I remember, we'd do our warm up laps, and Shinji would be the first every session. Just loved training. Never complained, and just a real pleasure to play with someone of that caliber and learn off him and see how humble Shinji was, and he came from obviously the top in Europe and playing at the in the Japanese national side, and he was just so quiet around the change room, and I think that's the Japanese nature, but it was just a pleasure to play with Shinji and learn off him.
Now, we've also got a question from John, and he says, what does the future hold for Santa? So, like in a media, coach, personal business, he said as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think when a professional transforms his life into the next phase, I think I'm still in that phase where I'm not sure. I think this role at George Cross Football Club has been great for me in terms of learning a new job off the park. I'm learning day by day there, and obviously we're stood down at the moment. But when things get started, it's going to be very busy there, and I'll learn again. And what that leads to, who knows? I'd love to be part of an A-League setup one day, and obviously mentoring the young ones. I think that's something that I really enjoy, and I can give a lot back in that way. But it's a little bit of a mystery at the moment where I'm going to end up in 2, 3, 4 years time. But the ultimate goal would probably be in an A-League setup.
Now, I did have a look at your LinkedIn profile as well. Are you still involved with the My Game Guru?
Yeah, so we've had that up and running now for probably a good 4 or 5 years now, and it's been a great journey with that. We had 80,000 users in our first year when we had it for free, and we had it running pretty well in Sydney. And then obviously when it's a business and you've got costs and whatever involved, you have to charge people. So we started charging a cup of coffee to download the app, and we found a little bit of a hurdle with that, and people dropped off as soon as they had to pay $2.99. So I think the ones that respected our app and what we built for the junior system stuck on with us, and I think we still had about 20 to 30,000 users last season, which is great. And when football kicks off again, grassroots, we'll definitely be up and running. So it's My Game Guru, and it's on the App Store and on Android.
That's really cool. And Brent, just quickly, I want to ask you, when you said at an A-League club, is that in terms of the business sense, or is coaching something you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, probably not coaching. I think it's more of a business side of things that I would like to take up, and I think there's so many things that I can do with my experience, and I'm not sure exactly the right job description for me at the moment. Because I'm still trying to work out exactly what I want to do myself. But I think one day I'll be able to give back in a really good way, whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Joe, is that
But
all the questions?
That's all the Twitter questions. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we've
Nothing
gone for.
for fans, Joseph or Trent. Is there nothing's come through from any Glory fans? No.
Oh, we've got quite a few from some Sydney FC fans, but I think we might leave them for another day.
They're quite brutal, are they?
Oh, well, we can go there if you like.
Yeah, look, I'm willing to answer one if there
Pick
is.
one, Joe. I'll
Well,
trust your judgment.
I don't know if I want to. Like most of them aren't. Nah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's that bad. That bad. Are they these trolls, or what do they call them? Keyboard warriors or whatever?
Keyboard warriors. You can have a look at the Twitter Santa, and then you can see what questions we got asked. So
Yeah, I'll go on. I'll have a look. I'll search them and I'll send them a DM.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's awesome. I think have we gone for an over an hour, Joe?
I think we have. Yeah.
That's awesome. Brendon, thanks so much for coming on, mate. We really, really appreciate it.
No problem at all, guys. It was great to chat, and happy to chat once COVID's all done again, and talk all things football. And let's all hope that we come out the better side of this. And yeah, everyone stay home, stay safe, and look after yourselves.
For sure, great message.
Cool, Sweezy. Thank you, Brent, for coming on. That was episode 27 or 28, Trent.
Well, it depends what order we upload them in, but when I said 28. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone.
That's it,
Cheers.
episode 28.
Ciao.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.